Hello and welcome to the Super Rugby Review Show here on New Zealand Sports Radio. We'll be reviewing round, 6, I think it is, of Super Rugby Aotearoa and round 7 of Super Rugby AU. We have 4 games for you. The Crusaders versus the Highlanders, the Brumbies, the Waratahs versus the Brumbies, the Blues versus the Hurricanes. Oh, dearie me. And the Rebels versus the Reds. And I hope I've got them the right way around for all of those. Joining me and keeping me on the straight and narrow is Aotearoa. How are you doing, sir?
Oh, not doing too badly. I'm keeping you on the straight and narrow, or are you keeping me on the straight and narrow?
No, I'm not sure. Before we even start here, I mean, you're trying to usurp yourself. So look, let's get ourselves in the right position here.
Wasn't me. Wasn't me. I'm taking the shaggy.
For those of you listening, listening to the podcast rather than watching the show, Aotearoa put himself in the host seat of the show. He thinks he's doing the swinging from the hip, but it's not. No,
I didn't. It's the software. It's the algorithms, man. It's the algorithms.
By
AI. The AI.
Dear me, please don't talk about computers. You know nothing.
You know nothing.
Jon Snow, you know nothing. Oh, dear me. So, welcome everybody, and do let us know in the live chat. Obviously, we're here at 8 p.m. every Sunday with the Super Rugby Review Show. So do join us on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. You can join in the live chat and let us know your thoughts about the games as well. Kicking us off was clearly the game of the round, folks, with the Crusaders taking on the Highlanders. I think pretty much nobody gave the Highlanders any hope coming into this game. They stood 6 players down due to breaches of, I've got the wording they use now, but basically partying and drinking, whereas that's not the word. The words breach of protocols, I think was the words they used, and then decided to go into total shutdown which not talking to the media, which really didn't help the narrative at all. But that kind of stuff is we'll discuss on Tuesday evening on the Driving More show about how the Super Rugby franchises or Super Rugby teams should handle that kind of thing, because I think that was a lesson in how not to do it by the Highlanders. But early on, it didn't start off that great for the Highlanders, to be honest. Gregory got himself in the wrong position, and interesting call by the referee there, because Gregory was the first infringement, but Will Jordan didn't have to make contact with the player in the air, and it could have been reversed, but it wasn't. Aotearoa, I see you throwing your hands in the air like you just don't care.
Oh, I think I'm having some technical issues. Can you still hear me?
Yep, we can still hear you. We're all good.
Okay, yeah, no, I've got a few. Okay, so and you see my pictures on and numbers. No, look, I mean that. I'm assuming, are you talking about the Gregory where Will Jordan takes the I forgot who catching the ball out in the air?
Yep.
Yeah. Look, yeah. I mean that's just frustrating stuff. Is that we saw last week where crappy. Hang on. Cancel that. Yeah. We saw last week where the second action was the one that gets penalised, which was deemed to be worse. And there's no doubt that the worst action in this scenario is the fact that Jordan takes the player in the air, and the fact that he has to actually run around a blocker to take him out in the air makes it even worse. So the fact that last week we see the retaliator basically gets penalised. This week it's it's the first action. Yeah, you just throw your hands in the air.
Referee got himself confused there. And to be fair, though, that was about the only one that I thought the ref had a good game overall. He just made a shocker with the opening kickoff, unfortunately. So yes, so they got that one wrong. But as I say, from then onwards, I thought the ref had a decent game in this one. The Highlanders did the right thing. I mean, well, actually, it was in that they did kick for points, and at half time, I mean, obviously we had the typical thing of you don't beat the Crusaders with threes, And I'm like, oh, seriously? At halftime, it was 1-try-all, but 7-16. So you're leading by 9 points because you're kicking those threes.
Yep. Look,
and,
I mean, you're 100% right there. I mean, we've been talking about this. I think it's a historical thing more than anything. Going back in the past, you didn't beat the Crusaders if you took your threes, because they would score tries. But the game on the weekend shows is that you take your threes and you execute the rest of your game plan through for 80 minutes. Then you can beat the Crusaders by taking your threes. It's usually the fact is that you take your threes and then they get a lucky try, against the run of play, and everybody loses their rag and it all goes pear-shaped from there. One thing that happens here is that the Crusaders ended up with a fortunate try on the break, but the Highlanders didn't let that derail their game, which is what normally happens, is the opposition get derailed in their own game plan, and therefore the threes become irrelevant.
Yeah, but what it did do is, as Aaron said in the score there, in the live chat there, is that the points added scoreboard pressure, but it also meant that the Crusaders knew they had to tighten up their discipline, and by tightening up the discipline, they give you more space. And by giving you more space, you've got more chance of scoring tries.
Yep.
So it's
if you're good enough.
If you're good enough, and look, the tries that the Highlanders did score were their last 2 scoring opportunities, right? So there, it was the scoreboard pressure, the clock pressure that led to providing the space, or providing the change in play by the Crusaders, because they knew they couldn't let it get out to any bigger, that then allowed them to score those tries. And that's how you construct this. Sure, you could say that the Highlanders beat the Crusaders on tries because they scored 3 tries to 2. So yes, they did beat them with tries, but it builds off those threes.
And then a couple of other points is that, I mean, one thing that Steve and I have harped on about, I think, forever, is the fact is that, at the end of the day, if the Blues and Crusaders don't turn up with their top game, then any team can beat anybody on the day. It's like you have to turn up on the day. And we saw with the Crusaders 2 things. They started making a few mistakes, and there's been games where they've made mistakes. But what made it different this time is that we've also talked about the fact is that all the teams give the Crusaders too much space to actually develop their game on the game day, right? Richie Mo'unga, the last game or the game before it, everybody raved about his last 2 games and how great he was. It's because the defenses just let him take his time to execute. But what happened with the Highlanders, they didn't give them the time to execute. So they were getting flustered, and they made their normal mistakes that they do, but they couldn't cover it up because the time and space was taken away by the defending team.
Yeah, but also, okay, in both halves, the Highlanders had the more possession and the more territories. They starved the Crusaders of ball, but the way they went about it was really kind of clever. They would kick deep, knowing that the Crusaders would kick back to them, and then they would hold on to the ball and run it back. They wouldn't try and they were kicking. I mean, they kicked 27 times. The Highlanders kicked more than the Crusaders did. But when that second kick came back, they would then take the ball up, knowing that you've got broken play. So you're going to get onto the front foot, and from there you can then play your game because you're on the front foot. And so I thought that was really clever as to that structure as to how they went about it, and they stuck to that game plan as well. Tony Brown said, right, this is how we're going to play, and they played to it. Now, I mean, a lot of commentators, a lot of commentary at the moment is about, or has over the last sort of couple of years, has been about play what's in front of you. And yes, sure, you should do, but that also involves having a structure around you that gives you those 2 choices. And it's not about playing anything; it's about having two or three choices and playing the right choice for what's in front of you.
Keep it
it's
simple.
not about having total free-form rugby.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I mean, you're so right. I mean, Will Jordan aside, I haven't seen. I mean, the Crusaders have been playing fantastic rugby. Let's not get that out of perspective. But one thing we haven't seen from the Crusaders is that they don't look like a team that's going to run at 80 meters, right? So I don't understand why teams haven't done this more in terms of what the Highlanders is just keep them inside their 22. You know, you get, it's like as long as you do a half decent kick, and the key to the kick is not actually the kick itself. It's the fact of the follow-up line, the defensive line coming up, making sure you're engaged and you haven't got a split defensive line coming up, right? So the guys that are in front don't progress forward. Allow the players from behind to put you onside and then make sure you're connected to maintain the defensive line. If you achieve that, then you can keep them pinned. The issue happens is that, you kick deep a couple of times because you want to keep the Crusaders pinned back, but your defensive line's all disjointed and therefore they rip you open. It's discipline. Keep your defensive line jointed and they won't go anywhere.
Yep. There's some. There was Aaron saying that the Highlanders tackled out their skins. Look, the Highlanders made 106 tackles to 166 by the Crusaders. The Crusaders have made a lot more work there. The Highlanders also only made 79% of their tackles, which is not very good. But their scramble defense was good. If the first one, as you were talking about, the rush up was there to rush up. Even if you missed the tackle, you've closed down a lot of the play. And the second guy can get them because you slowed it down.
Yes, exactly.
And that's so. Well, sure, we've seen a lower number there, but at the end of the day, the Crusaders made eight clean breaks and only scored 2 tries. The Highlanders made 6 clean breaks and scored 3, which shows that scramble really did work. The thing that really hurt the Crusaders though was turnovers. 22 turnovers conceded. Absolutely a nightmare there for them as the boys. Particularly in the back row, but also what was actually really kind of clever was you had Fakatava got a turnover. So one of the things we mentioned on the post-match review show that we did straight after the final whistle of this game was that, look, you don't want Fakatava making your tackles because he's not the biggest guy, right? So if you can get your
not small,
sure, he's not small, but it's not. But in comparison to your I'm trying to a Frizzell or something, right?
Oh, right.
You want your Frizzell making the tackle, and then and have your Fakatava go straight for the ball, because your Frizzell's going to stop the guy dead. If you try and do it the other way around, Frizzell's not going to have a chance at getting that ball because it's going to be all over. He's going to be smashed backwards. So
exactly. Even if Fakatava makes the tackle, he's probably made a meter or two. That means that that second defensive player arriving has to reposition his feet to be able to get over the ball, as opposed to going in straight over the ball because he's been taken down at the advantage line or before the advantage line.
So again, clever use of players and knowing their role, right? Knowing that I'm the small guy who's going to step behind the tackler, knowing that my job is to go straight for the ball, not to basically ignore the player. He's going to make the tackle. I'm going to trust him to make the tackle. He'll make it, and I'll do my job separately. So, good play all round from the Highlanders. Look, the Crusaders were off colour. Let's be blunt here. They were the number of passes that hit the grass was unreal.
Yeah, but again, Paul, it's like, it's because that the defensive side actually put some pressure on and closed down the space. And they're like any other rugby team. If you're able to put them under pressure, those sorts of errors will come. The fact is that there's too much standoff and watch the player and his dancing feet, and you allow them to do that at your peril, and that's what we generally see, right? Whereas with he's heating up. But you generally see if you generally see that sort of space and time for them to execute the pass or the run that they need to do to get the Crusaders on the front foot. If you can close them down, then and that's what we saw. Then you're going to put them under pressure. They're going to make mistakes because they're like any other rugby player. They're human. They're going to make poor options and they're going to execute poorly. So
there was one of the commentators thinks there was 6 minutes to go. The clock is starting to pressure the Crusaders. It's like, no, it's been pressuring them for about a good 10-15 minutes already, and we saw that. Richard Mwanga rushed his kick for the conversion because he knew they didn't have time. He had to get the quick kick. He didn't have time to spend a full minute or whatever it is he's allowed to take.
We saw that twice on the weekend.
Sorry?
We saw that twice on the weekend where, time running down and pressure kicks, crucial pressure kicks that need to go over, and really, but they can't take the time that they need to, and they end up, spraying it.
Also for the in the gone blank. Anyway, the calm had gone from that Crusaders team. So with those passes behind the back, I mean, we saw Garden Bishop, who had a cracking game, benefit from that, and definite player who was really impressing on his first season. We'll talk about a player later in a Blues jersey who had a cracking opening season and is finding his second season difficult. Let's not get on to too many superlatives around someone like Conor Garden Bishop at the moment, but clearly at the moment playing really, really well this year and enjoying Super Rugby.
Just the thing about Conor Garden Bishop is the fact is that I just think that it's surprising, because obviously we would sort of think we've seen Jackson Garden Bishop running around for the Canes and for Wellington. And he's a good player, let's not get it wrong, but he doesn't have that acceleration. Conor Garden Bishop has that acceleration that his brother doesn't have. He's got pace and he's got speed that really gets him into great positions and allows him to do some great things.
Yep, no, absolutely, and that gives him a lot of confidence from that as well. I think he's a much more confident player than his brother from that point of view. I mean, remember when his brother should have gone for the corner. When he didn't earlier in the season, whereas Conor, I think that allows him to back himself. Nocturnal writes a result that shows why you should not get too carried away about some players because they play behind a dominant pack. Yep,
and
true.
We'll talk about that a bit later as well. Hey, I just want to come back to that comment that Aaron made around Whakatava. We talked about this at Saturday night when we were at Eden Park before the Blues game, and absolutely, we just sort of thought like. Whakatava is clearly the second best halfback in the country at the moment. Aaron Smith's number one, no doubt about that. But Whakatava is clearly the number two halfback in the country for the guys that were there on Saturday night, waiting for the Blues Canes game.
He's playing well, and
he's playing well,
and shows that if you're happy somewhere, extend your contract. Don't worry about who is in front or behind you. Your competition. If you're happy where you're playing, stay where you are.
Yeah, but look at that stupid comments that were around about, Aaron Smith signed for the Highlanders, so how much game time is he going to get? He got 60 minutes on the weekend against the Crusaders. And for the Highlanders, how perfect is that? You got Whakatava, who's playing fantastic rugby, starts the game, and you're able to bring Aaron Smith an experience on in a winning position to make sure he helps control that game to make sure that they get over that line. Not, I mean, it wasn't really close in the end, but you still got that experience to rely on, fresh mind to come on and to execute.
Yeah, look, the All Blacks want to take Aaron Smith to the 2023 Rugby World Cup, right? Having him play full 80 minutes like he has done over the last few years, every game for the Highlanders, isn't going to help that by having a situation like now where he only has to start every other game or whatever, and can come off the bench. It's fantastic for the All Blacks.
Oh, look, how much would have been taken out of him? Those previous seasons, we just never really. I mean, we knew it, but we never really talked about it. He was playing 78 minutes of nearly every game, right? Yep. Of every Super Rugby game in a full Super Rugby season. Yeah, you had Hamilton coming on with 2 minutes to go or 5 minutes to go. They did not rely on any other halfback other than Aaron Smith.
Yep. Now this obviously ruined my $3 bet because obviously, and I say everyone would have put it on with the Crusaders, but it definitely has opened up this tournament. And with 2 upsets last weekend, an upset this weekend, look, Super Rugby Aotearoa is heading in the right way because what was looking like basically a procession for the Crusaders, really is now has a lot more interest, and this is exactly what the tournament needed. It could have done with this result in the very first week. Yeah. When the Highlanders had a shout, but didn't never managed to quite get ahead. Yeah, good to see that.
One thing we just before we leave that game, it's just like how lucky were the Highlanders that Michael Collins got a crap pass because it helped them get to the line in his try. because he's actually falling forward to catch the ball. And because he's down low, I think it was Will Jordan, really can't get a shot on him to tackle him. Not saying he would have tackled him, but, because he's ducked down and he's at a lower height, he just can't really get anything on a shoulder on him to stop him getting to the line. And it was because the ball was a dipping ball in front of Michael Collins that he was basically having to lean forward to try and catch.
For Michael Collins, good to see him actually doing well down there after this flack he took up at the Blues when he was being played out of position.
Yeah, Paul. I'll be honest with you, mate. I think reality is that he's a journeyman player, and I think if you didn't have the 6 players that were sort of digressing, and that you have got players with a lot more skill. Maybe the experience, definitely not. I mean, the headspace and the experience, but reality is with pace and sort of ability, there's players ahead of him at the Highlanders.
Look, I'm not for 1 minute saying he should be an All Black or anything like that.
Oh, no, not at all.
But I am saying he's a decent Super Rugby player whereas the other Blues, he was considered not even decent enough to play Super Rugby by a lot of fans. So, look, he is Super Rugby quality. Now, is he a star of a team? No, he's not. But he's a guy who's a good team player. From that point of view.
The player award at the end of the season.
Heading across the ditch then to the Waratahs versus the Brumbies. Now, I don't think many of us were expecting much from this game. Let's be let's be honest. And by the way, folks who are watching the show rather than listening to the podcast, there's an example of a Blues fan's opinion on Michael Collins. Talking moving across the ditch thing. Look, Waratahs just got rid of their head coach. Put 2 assistant coaches in as co-heads, and we know that co-head coaches doesn't work. Basically. So the Waratahs pretty much doing everything the wrong way, and we weren't. So I think a lot of us were expecting the Brumbies just to walk into town and roll them over. Look, they came in and scored 10 points early on, and it would have been very easy for the Waratahs just to lay down and die at that point. But to be fair to them, look, they did make they made a game of it, and came very close to getting more than a losing bonus point out of it as well.
Let's jump ahead to the 81st minute of the game, and you're basically at the bottom of the table. You pretty much guaranteed the wooden spoon for the season. Should they have planned that play better, knowing that the Brumbies are down 2 men in the defensive line, to look at scoring closer to the post, as opposed to giving he's a little bit more than a rookie first 5, but he's still a very inexperienced first 5, a shot from the sideline to win the game.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was to take the game into extra time, because it would have been taken us to golden try.
Yeah.
Because it would have been a draw. But yes, if you're scoring your final try right out on the wing, and you're 7 points behind, you are definitely leaving it up to the gods, as it were, as to as to the outcome. You're not taking control of the situation yourself.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. With the Brumbies down a couple of players, you should definitely have been trying to score closer in than that.
Closer in.
Absolutely.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, that's it. So look, I mean, I think it was Simon that sort of said it in terms of the fact that, yeah, there we go. You got it up there anyway, right in front of me. It's amazing how teams, after they've had their coach fired, that following week come in and perform, and it's sort of like something that happens to teams when they lose their coach. That first game back, everybody's fired up and they seem to perform well. We don't see the Waratahs maintaining that.
No, not really. Got to
agree. NPC quality team.
Yeah, for those of you who kind of can't remember, who don't know what NPC is, because it doesn't exist anymore, the equivalent of the Mitre 10 Cup or the new Bunnings NPC Championship. But look, The Waratahs dominated territory and possession in this one. The Brumbies having to make twice as many tackles as the Waratahs. So look, this was and whilst we talked about in the Crusaders Highlanders game about the lack of set piece, in this one, 18 lineouts for the Waratahs and 14 for the Brumbies. Boy, there was a lot of clearance kicks to touch. A very different style of play.
Look, when you look at that game and the tries that the Brumbies scored, there was some really weak defence from the Waratahs and the tries. I mean, the classic ones, the Tom Banks try, I think was the first one, and the number of players there, the opportunity to cut him down, and he just seemed to bounce away from them, and it's just like really. And then there was another one, I think I think it might have been that scored in the corner, and it's just like plenty of opportunity to cut him down, and it's just like how he was able to get to the try line was. So I actually think that game shows up that the frailties that the Brumbies has rather than how well the Waratahs actually played.
Good, fair point. I say because they couldn't turn the ball over. I mean, kicks from hand. I think I talked last time in the last game. It was like 14 and 20 odd. It's 26 by the Waratahs, 31 by the Brumbies. So a lot more kicking in this game. So a very different style of game to the Aotearoa one. Lots of turnovers conceded as well in this one. And the Brumbies 15 penalties, lucky to get away with just 2 yellow cards and a red card in some ways.
We know the Super Rugby Gold final is basically a Reds Brumbies game. And reality is that the Reds can all week. The Reds should basically be talking about no penalties, right? Because if the Reds don't have any penalties, the Brumbies really don't get that platform to launch their game.
Yeah, true. Absolutely. That's what they're going to need to. And look, last year it was Brumbies Reds. This year I think we're going to be talking Reds Brumbies as a final. That's going to make a big difference as the team who finishes top gets a bye and also gets home advantage. A bye in the preliminary final, the semi-final that has to take place. So I think it's going to be a reverse of the reverse final of last year. We'll see if we get the reverse result as well. I'll turn right to say the second half tends to drag. I'm not sure if that's because you've already watched 3 hours worth of rugby and getting late.
And we're starting to get to the witching hour and our side of the Tasman.
And look, in 2 games where you're expecting the Brumbies and the Reds to win comfortably, you're also not necessarily that switched on as well. You're thinking, well, it's going to be boring. But credit to the Tars to take it all the way to the end there and nearly get the golden point. With the Reds one, you're just like, what's the point at this point? Look,
you're basically around 11 o'clock, you're going through his phone and it's like, oh, I heard there's a mummy bear and she's trying to get her cubs across the road. Oh, wait, what's happened to the rugby?
So yeah, definitely.
I do agree with him though. The Reds do seem the exception, and the fact is that they do seem to be a second half team. They do seem to lift in the second half a lot better. Obviously before there was Tupou that used to come off the bench, but he's starting now. So the rest of the team's still lifting for that second half, and they seem to improve in that second half.
I think the thing, a bit like we're talking with Aaron Smith Fakatava, is they've been switching it round. They've been sometimes starting him, sometimes putting him on the bench. And using him both ways, not trying not to burn him out effectively. But the Reds definitely make it, especially earlier in the season. I think less so now, but they were definitely trying to run teams off their feet, and then win the game. Whereas I think now they're trying to win the game earlier than they were before. Will Tupou end up a future legend of the game? I think he's already a legend in his own lifetime at the moment. To be honest, look, he was a mini legend before he even started. Has been Tongan Thor. So, look, I think yes, I think he is heading towards that sort of thing. So the Brumbies roll on, but they got lucky a bit in this one. The Waratahs showing a lot more fight than we expected. But as you say, Ashwin, I can't see them continuing that for the rest of the season. But there are only a couple of rounds left for them anyway. But you do worry for them come Super Rugby Trans-Tasman. Look, a team that's playing that's $1 million short of their salary cap compared to all the other Australian teams is, yeah. Look, I don't think coaching was their issue, to be honest with you.
That's Aaron's comment there. It shows that not everyone from Canterbury can coach. I
think that's harsh from Rob Penny.
Was it? But I mean, we can go back. I mean, before Robertson, the Crusaders actually went 9 years without winning a title, even though they were in the finals or semi-finals regularly. And that was with Blackadder, the father of Ethan. You've had Hammond with the Canes. You've had Aaron Major with the Highlanders. Now Penny and Rob Deans with the Waratahs, respectively. Before Rob Deans went with the Wallabies. So it's not a given that just because you've got this great history behind you that you can lead them in. And I think that's what shows the exceptional skill sets that Scott Robertson has. And the fact is that it's not just about being a great coach; it's about motivating a group of men to perform.
And also, it's also the success he's having down there is partially due to the whole environment that Canterbury and the Crusaders have, but he's adding the little stardust on top that gets them some titles as opposed to just being contenders.
It's obviously the breakdancing at the end of practice.
I'm sorry, but okay, tangent. But look, Scott Robertson and Razor in the third one. Look, he was starting to look like looking like a dad dancing. The first two was better. I think he's at the edge.
I think this is a one for Tuesday nights, but I seriously, I mean, I think this is something for Tuesday night, as I said, but it really is a discussion point. I haven't come across any rugby fan that believes that Ian Foster should be the All Blacks coach ahead of Scott Robertson.
That's a Tuesday night one for us then.
Yeah, that's a Tuesday night one. But I sort of put it out there. Let that stew with our followers and within our people that might turn up on the show as well, and think about that one. But I honestly haven't.
The Nocturus is Tasman will almost an equivalent power to Canterbury. Yes, they are, but they have a Crusaders academy there. But that's only been the last 5-6 years, I think. They are becoming. And Tasman has got pretty much a very similar setup now to Canterbury from that point of view, and it's all part of the same system. Actually, we won't put that one up. I
don't know what he's saying. It's his English is gone because he must have had a few whiskies. It's Sunday night and it's holiday tomorrow.
Well, I think he's still there. Look, moving on then to Eden Park, and you were there for that one. Before we get into this one, AJ Lamb, congratulations on your debut. Obviously, you'll be watching the show. Hey
AJ, how you doing?
Congratulations to him on his debut. I think he had to make one tackle and didn't touch the ball once, so hopefully he gets a bit more ball next time. Good to see him on his debut there. And also, it was Offa's 100th.
101.
101, was it?
Yeah, 101. He played the 100th away last week in Hamilton.
Yeah, because he was running on with his daughters, wasn't he, in this one? We had an early yellow card for Karifi, which I think everyone was happy with or comfortable with.
Unless you wore a yellow jersey. Well, not the referee's jersey. Sorry, the white jersey, I should say, or the yellow jersey. They normally wear.
The head coach of the I've gone blank to his name now. Plumtree, is it? I think it is for the Canes. Plumtree's moved, isn't he?
Yep. No. The Jono's brother, Chris.
Chris Gibbs. Yeah. They came out and said, "Yep, fine with that yellow." Understood. So look, that's not a. It's
actually lucky. I think it's actually lucky it wasn't red. Just clips the shoulder before making contact with the head, because Aotearoa Black isn't part of that ruck. So he's cleaning out a player that's actually clear of the ruck and doesn't need to be contacted at all. And then
AJ, is he
Yes.
Ben Lamb's brother? Yes, he is.
Apparently, yes, from the comment, the vague comment that the commentators on TV made.
But look, the first half was difficult watching, really. Both sides making errors, and we end up being 10-9 at half time. I think it was quite right the Blues were kicking threes. There was some in the commentary saying, "Oh no, I think look, being 7-6 up, nearly half time, they should go and try and kill the game or try and make a decisive advantage." No, take your threes. It was the right thing to do. Should they have given up a 3 back? No, they should have got to half time with at 10-6. But hey, the Canes were good enough to get that 3 there. But yeah, I'd say just the first half of errors, really.
Oh, look, you're being. I think you're being nice saying that as the first half was crap. I think the whole game was pretty average, to be honest. I've had a few people, and I had friends staying over for the weekend, but I still went to the game. Shows my commitment. I got back, and they're not really rugby people.
You just don't like the people who are staying with you for the weekend.
But we got back. They're not really rugby people. I said, "Oh, how'd the game go?" So the game was crap, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It's the result that matters. You win ugly. Who cares? You get the W, and that's all that matters.
Look, were the Blues full flowing, wonderful rugby in the second half? No. Did they control possession and go through more phases and not turn it over so much? Yes.
Yes.
They stopped trying to go.
Controlled the game a little bit better.
Yeah, they played narrower in their pods rather than trying to go wide quickly, and we're using the tip on quite well, and by doing so, held on to the ball a bit longer, which basically gave them the game in the end.
As a Blues fan, I just don't understand the concept of and Steve being a Blues fan as well. Jamie's not here. Hopefully, he might still be around in the chat room. But being a Blues fan, it just doesn't make sense, or it's hard to comprehend the fact that the Blues, as soon as the whistle blows for the start of the game, they start going wide. They've got one of the biggest pack, if not the biggest pack out there, that can get good forward momentum close into the rucks, that brings the defense in, and then gives those players out wide that have actually got some skills. And you got Ronnie Clark and Mark Talia on the wings who can beat one-on-one defenders. Give them that. This is like, take it up close first, take it in close, get some forward momentum, and then get it out to them. But now the ball goes straight out to them. And what that actually does, it actually compromises them when they're tackled, because if when you're going out wide, it's harder to get your people in to protect the ruck, and therefore opening yourself up to a jackal or a pulfer.
Also, as we saw in the second half with Ruru running with the ball quite on about every third ruck, it showed that it meant that the Hurricanes' defense was sliding quickly. So if they know you're going wide, they'll slide wide, and there's no room out there for you anyway. Absolutely. Add on to that, Rico trying to take players on the outside shoulder the whole time, eating up space for his wingers, and the combination of all that means that you end up with the 16th player being the sideline, and the Blues just keep running out of space. So
I think. Yeah, I think I can't think of the word. I've gone blank on it, but the discussion around Rico and his passing ability isn't actually the major problem. The major problem is the fact that he runs sideways trying to get around his man, and he takes up the space for his outsides as his fullback who's coming into the line and his winger. That's the problem. If he straightens better, I think we will find that he actually can pass. And he did actually do a couple of times in the game where he didn't run sideways, or he did manage to beat his man on the outside and was then able to offload inside or outside.
Yeah, look, he creates one of the tries by doing that, by running around one of the forwards, but he got a mismatch there.
Yep.
With Walker Leary, who had a decent game, by the way. Just look, if you're up against that kind of player, it's going to happen to you. Stefansson asks us concerns over Caleb Clark's confidence and performance. Look, he's confidence is going to be low because he's had little opportunities to play because he's given no space. I think we've just talked through why he's in that situation. Second season, though, also people have got more game tape on him to understand what he's going to do, and we'll close him down more. And yeah, it's just something he's going to have to work through and show that he is All Black quality.
No, I think you're right. Obviously, second season, people do get tape on him and able to work out his game. But there's elements of his game which I think he's not doing at the moment because of his confidence level. One of the things he did, which doesn't matter how much tape you got, is that his game is getting involved in the game. So he comes off his wing and he gets involved around the ruck and taking the ball up like a forward almost, and which he gets meters forward, and he's not doing that. And that does, somebody watching tapes of you doesn't stop you doing that, and that is really just the fact that your confidence is down.
Yeah, but tape does say, okay, which way does he step? How does he step?
Oh, absolutely.
Which mean that he gets tackled easier. And look, he's still a big boy at the end of the day.
And the fact that what we just alluded to, a few seconds ago, in terms of Rico taking up that space by running sideways, instead of basically, get him the ball, let him have a go one-on-one even, because he hasn't even had a go one-on-one for how long?
Yeah, exactly. Look, lots of players with rocks and diamonds in this one. I mean, Kiriwani, way too slow at the back of the scrum, giving up the ball, but then holds up the player at the end of the game to secure the game. So look, I'm
glad you brought that one up actually, because I was, look, at the end of the day, it was still poor play by Akira. He really was a bit too casual. But what disappointed me was Ruru was actually I was going to say penalised. He wasn't penalised, but picked up on for not. Oh no, it wasn't Ruru. So it was Mark Talia for knocking the ball down out of a hand and therefore called as a knock on. Tamatani does the same thing for Akira. He gets to Akira, he knocks the ball out of Akira's hand, he effectively knocks the ball forward, and it should have been a blue scrum. In saying that, Akira was too casual off the back of that scrum.
Yep, absolutely, yeah, he was. And again, was that the right call? Should Ruru
Ruru should have kicked.
Should Ruru, well, not picking out a kick, but should Ruru should just pass it to someone to kick rather than expect. So again, you're at that stage of the game. Do you want to play low percentage, or are you trying to add extra tries when you're already 24-12 up?
Yeah.
Look, you're not having to chase the game. Is that really the right play?
No, it was wrong. It was totally the wrong play. Totally the wrong play. It should have basically been straight out and up the field into touch as far as you can kick it into touch. So then you can't even do a quick throw on or anything.
Now, and this is part of the leadership issue that the Blues have. Look, I've got no problem with Tom Robinson being captain per se. I think he's a good guy, good player, etc., and has been part of the leadership team. But should your captain be someone who isn't even in the starting 15 for so far during the season? That just shows you that there's very little other very little other leadership in that team, and that they are lacking leadership. So that to me that's a real problem for this Blues team at the moment, is that there is a lack of leadership in there after Patrick.
If you go back to last year when you had Beauden Barrett there, it's not so much a lack of leadership, it's a lack of that. I'll take it back to a corporate world. You got lots of leaders in corporate world, right? But the companies that perform how do they do that? Have that exceptional leadership, and that's when you look at a Beauden Barrett that's there. You got leaders like Patrick, and then you got leadership above that, and that's what I mean. Like we go back to the Crusaders, that's what you have across the park with the Sam Whitelock, your Richie Moanga, even with the David Havili a little bit as well. Scott Barrett, you've got players that aren't just leaders at this level, they're leaders at this level. So taking, and I think that's the issue, is the fact is that, just those players with that nous to take that next level type leadership.
Well, I'd argue that you're lacking mid-level leadership with the Blues, because if you're having to bring a non-starter on to be your leader after Patrick's injured, that shows there's no one else. It's just not there.
I actually, there's two elements to that, and whilst I don't disagree with you, I sort of think that one thing, Steve, I think, I can't remember if he mentioned on the show or whether he's just in our own conversations. The back row of the Blues just didn't quite have the right mix with Hoskins and Akira, two number eights effectively playing in the back row, and I think reality is that Robinson was going to come in. If, let's say, Patrick Tuipulotu was fit and captain, I think you still would have seen Robinson in. And then maybe if they see him as being one of their top leaders in there, you see him come in as a captain, even though he's been coming off the bench.
Yeah, well, okay. It just seems strange.
It still absolutely still feels weird that a guy that's been playing off the bench is all of a sudden you're captain. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, Arnie Surveyor's yellow card. So the commentary was absolutely appalling for this on a number of counts. Now, some people have said when I tweeted out about the commentary, saying, look, the commentators should be allowed an opinion. Absolutely, they're allowed an opinion, but they've got to understand they drive
thought.
The public, the public elite, the public perception you're going to see on Twitter and Facebook to a good degree. So they've got to give balance around their opinions and give the other view as well. Otherwise, you just end up with a whole witch hunt for the referee in public forums, which is totally unfair on the referee. So first off, to get down there in the first place, we had a Karifi pilfer that was blown for a penalty. On the replay, it's quite clear his right elbow is on the ground while his left hand is going for the ball, but they don't go and touch. But they don't even mention that, and they say, "Oh, it looks like a good pilfer to me. I don't know what the referee's calling there." Well, that's because you're blind. Then we go into the Moore situation where they're talking a lot about, oh, Arnie's come through the middle there. He's absolutely fine. He's entitled to be there. He is entitled to be there, but the referee isn't penalising him for being there. What the referee is penalising him for is because he has his knee here on the ground whilst the ball carrier is still on his feet and he gets above the ball carrier. Therefore, when it all collapses, he is seen as being the person pulling it down. Now, you can argue as to whether there were other players that brought it down, whether the Blues were diving for the line, all those sort of things. If you want to, that's fine. But
you're not talking about that.
But yeah, I'm talking about the commentators here. In that, the reason the referee has made that call is they've seen that knee, they've seen him above the ball carrier, they've seen it go down. That creates a picture that says he is pulling it down. Now, as I say, there are arguments that Scrafton from the other side and somebody else from there are tackling Arnie Surveyor. Fine, and if that's what's collapsed it, then maybe it was the wrong call. But to say that he's there, why did he get penalised, and not be able to explain what the penalty was, is extremely poor commentary from Sky TV in that one.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just like, look, that's the thing, and that's the problem that you've got. What Aaron's alluding to is the fact is that you don't. Although the rest of the country will say, "Oh, Auckland commentators," actually, there isn't a single Auckland commentator in the Sky group. Okay, even Mills on Saturday night was basically who played. It was in a championship-winning side with the Blues. Made some absolutely shocking calls. I remember one as a turnover, and it's just like, "Oh, the Blues have been correctly penalised for not rolling away." It's just like, what are you talking about? There's not even a Blues player left in the ruck obstructing the ball, and Hoskins has come over the top to pilfer, and so it was actually a wrong call by the ref. But Mills is going on about how poor the Blues have done and they correctly penalised. So it is absolutely correct. The commentating team is always looking at a bias against the Blues. It's so obvious and blatant there. And that Artie situation just sums that up beautifully.
Now, whether it's that, whether it's plain incompetent, I don't know. But the comms, particularly around this one, was very, very poor and has left has left the referee out, hung out to dry, which I think is out of order by the.
Well, I'll go back to the first Blues Hurricanes game, and you had Nisbo, and Justin Marshall and his commentators in that game, and it's just like, oh my god, I think the older Nisbo gets, the more biased he gets towards a Wellington or Hurricanes team, and that one actually doesn't matter whether it's Blues or whoever it is. He's just basically, look, mate, you're getting your call wrong now, so either retire or look at your game.
So yeah, Sky, up your game with the comms. So hopefully you're watching this. We know that we exist.
Yeah. So, let's not focus on our blokey bloke mates that do matey mate interviews that then go and stuff up on air, and let's actually get some commentators that actually commentate on the game and accurately.
You mean people who make racist jokes on air?
Yeah.
And clearly think it's extremely funny by the way they're grinning at their own joke. Absolutely piss poor, put bluntly.
Absolutely. I mean, look, I'm not going to be puritanical or anything like that. There's a time and a place. With your mates having a joke. If I've forgotten the Japanese player's name, but I mean, I know that he did it with the Japanese halfback that used to be there, and they used to do their funny videos and stuff like that. They're all in on the gag. They're all together. That's fine. It's not a place to do it on air.
No. So yeah, that was his Fakatava, and obviously Hemino was the number 8 for all the back row that's playing there. Anyway, Blues basically tidy things up in the second half, and that's what won the game by playing it tighter and not going wide. Didn't take an awful lot of rocket science, to be honest.
Look, just in terms of as a Blues fan, I think the reality is the fact is that they have to learn to win ugly. They'd stuffed up the week before against the Chiefs. For 1 minute short, they would have won ugly and got out of Dodge, and that's what they needed to do. This week they managed to do that, and that's what they got to learn, is to learn to win ugly, because when your game does come together, you know that you're pretty much sweet, but you got to learn to win ugly.
So final game of the round. So the Rebels take on the Reds. And look, I think
not the ACC, Simon. Not the ACC. No.
He said the
alternate commentators is the ACC, and it's just like, no.
No, he's saying you can have a button so you can change commentary, you can choose commentary.
Oh, they could do it. Right, sorry. Yeah, should have. Yep, sorry, my bad. Sorry.
Not that they use the ACC. No, please don't.
Sorry, my bad.
Again, a whole bunch of middle-aged mates, white guys, put bluntly. Rebels versus Reds. Look, 16 minutes, the Reds are up 24-0, and you're thinking, boy, this one's done and dusted. Absolutely done and dusted. The Rebels, look, to their credit, claw this back to 14-24 at half-time, which I did not see coming. I saw this one being an absolute runaway train for the Reds. Now, look, the Reds in the second half upped their game again and did pull away to win it 44-19. But I say, at least the Rebels managed to pull it back a little bit in that first half. It's just that's the Rebels managed to do a number on the Reds in their first game with their defense. The Reds really had a good one here, didn't they?
Every time the Rebels looked like they had a chance of getting back into the game, they threw an intercept pass.
Well, that doesn't help.
It's just like, the quick tries. I mean, watching, and this is like 2 tries is only 4 minutes gone. Holy crap. But shortly after, the Rebels were actually getting some good time with the ball and that. And holy crap, there's another try to the Reds because they threw an intercept pass just as they looked like they were getting themselves into the game. And it happened again later as well.
So yeah, it's this Reds team is looking good, right? They looked complacent last weekend, but managed to pull it round. When they're up against a team that's done a job on them, even if they did win that last game, it was at the death. They step up their game, and I think that's what we're going to see come finals time. I think the Reds. I say we're a bit too complacent last weekend, This weekend, that didn't happen up against a team who Lamani looking very good. I mean, hey, having the Fijian scrum half as your winger isn't a bad option apparently in this one.
I think a Fijian back, will basically anyone from the second row can play anywhere on the field if you're a Fijian.
Lamani. What I was saying was all rubbish because Lamani's was playing for the Rebels and looked very good. He was like the only player. He was one of the best players for the Rebels. But for the Reds, look, they got a good pack. They got them from football, and then they ran away with it. And as I say, a few interceptions which were really poor by the Rebels. But if you're chasing the game, that's the kind of thing that kind of happens.
Yeah,
really.
And I mean, look, and let's not. The other thing that you have to highlight is the way that Tupou runs. I mean, you give him space. He's as fast, especially. I mean, like maybe you can catch him over 100 meters, but you ain't going to catch him over 30 or 40 meters. He's got enough pace to out sprint a back.
He's a phenomenal player. Anyone listen to the new app on Australian Rugby podcast on the break? No, didn't look at the Australian Rugby podcast, but apparently them being financially broke, they have been for the past decade, I think. I don't think there's anything new there about Australian Rugby being broke. But,
could be a Tuesday item though. If there's some, the oil on how it all actually over 10 years fell apart, the wheels fell off.
So yes. Look, I'm not sure there's much to say about this one. We expect the Rebels to put a better fight than they did against the Reds. But look, once someone's got a couple of early tries like that, it's going to be difficult to make it a contest. Let's be honest.
Yeah. Sorry, Karen. I was just going to say we're a bit remiss. I was just like just to sort of like with the Hurricanes. We've looked at. I know. Being Blues fans, we've looked at players and think, why isn't he there? But realistically speaking, honestly, I can't understand how the Hurricanes can't have a better first five amongst this squad, their extended squad. I mean, I know Steve and I mentioned Steve, but we've talked about Lincoln McClutchie, who had pretty good season for Hawke's Bay. How he can't get game time for the Hurricanes, I don't know. It's just mind-boggling, tell you the truth. And the fact is that they got a young kid down there from up Auckland from King's College and Aidan Morgan. The fact is that really not achieving anything by having Ledger there as first five. You got to chuck these kids in there and give them a go. Then I mean, Lincoln McClutchie's not even a kid. He's been playing NPC for 3 or 4 seasons now. So realistically speaking, I just. It'd help the Hurricanes a hell of a lot if they could get a first five that could get them around the field a bit better. They're just relying so much on Geordie Barrett. And one thing that I don't know whether it came across on the TV or not, watching the game on TV, but while you're at the ground, they made a few breaks on the flanks and that. You expect that from any team. But the reality is their game plan was Geordie kicking it as high as he can and trying to get the ball to Snowflake. That was their game plan, basically. When you're at the ground watching it from the West Stand, I don't know if that's what came across on TV.
Look, there are options for the Hurricanes at 9 and 10 if they want to, as you say. Lincoln McClutchie at 10, at 9 again. They've also got very inexperienced guys. Someone like Dwayne Poliativo, for example, is knocking around New Zealand at the moment, who's the Samoan number 9 for the Rugby World Cup just a couple of years ago. So look, there are options for them there. Personally, I think Brett Cameron should be released from the Crusaders as well to go play for them. Look, he's already moved to Manawatu, so it's quite clear he's going to be at the Hurricanes next year. So let him go this year.
To be fair, Luke Campbell, the first five. The halfback.
Yeah, but you need 2, don't you? And
no, but but I thought he actually until this weekend's game, I was just like, why is he starting? But I actually thought he actually didn't have a bad game on Saturday night.
And also having an experienced guy around the squad, just how do you prepare for a game, what do you look for in your position, all that kind of stuff would also help those young guys as well.
Yep. What happened to Booth? Where did he go? Didn't he get picked up by the Canes?
Yeah, he's there, but he's injured.
Oh, okay. But you're still, what you just alluded to, right? Having somebody with experience on prep, game management, that sort of thing. Someone like Jamie Booth. But just sort of like, if that's all you've got, it's still better than nothing in terms of he is an experienced player. When we saw him play for the Sunwolves, previous iterations of Super Rugby, again, it's a comment we used to make. Why wouldn't when the Blues were struggling with halfbacks before they got Knock up and running, before they got Finlay Christie, this is like, why wouldn't the Blues be knocking on Jamie Booth's door? So he's definitely got something that he can share with someone like Luke Campbell.
I'm amazed actually. Luke Campbell's 26.
Wow. Okay.
This is not a young kid. Rugby. But anyway, it's first season Super Rugby. And Jonathan Tumatene is 24 as well. Right. Previously with the Chiefs. So yeah, perhaps a bit surprising with that one there. AK, is anyone else really concerned about how poor the skill levels in New Zealand teams have been so far? Not really. No, I don't think so.
You're not concerned about it? You're not surprised? I'll be honest, I am a little bit. I thought first rounds hey, look, it's not too bad and we'll get better. I actually think, like we watched, obviously the Highlanders Crusaders game was pretty good, but there could have been the level of intensity and sort of thing in the game as well. But when you look at two games, the Chiefs Blues game last week and the Hurricanes Blues game this week, pretty poor in terms of execution of skill sets.
Just got a quick reminder for people on YouTube, you can always use Super Chat if you want to highlight a question for us to talk about. Just a point there. Look, I think we're probably close to wrapping this one up unless something like that comes through. But a couple of conversation things in the chat there. About second year for the Blues after the 2020 is second year season syndrome. Hurricanes only good loose forward is Ardy, etc. Look, more of that kind of stuff is going to come about on Tuesday evening with the Driving More show. Do join us at 8 p.m. on Tuesday evening for that show. Put your questions in the live chat there. That's our general rugby chat, talking about all the hot topics in rugby around the world. Here we are talking about generally trying to keep it on at the games rather than we perhaps have tangentially drifted a little bit this evening more than we would do normally. Super Rugby AU going to script, Super Rugby Aotearoa having a few more questions thrown in there over these last 2 weeks. Previous to that, going very, very close, very much to script. I think everyone knew what was going to happen. Definitely more interest has been breathed into the tournament over the last couple of weeks. Thank you very much, Ashwin, for joining me this evening. As I say, we'll be back on Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. with the Driving More show. I will be here at 7 a.m. every single morning with the morning sports briefing. So the best way to start the day is to be with all the important sports news. So do join me for those as well. And don't forget, everything is available as a podcast as well. So do download us onto your phone, listen to us on the go, during your commute, housework, gardening, or whatever. Oops, wrong computer, trying to stop. There we go.